would love for you all to meet Brittany McCall. She is a Gold Star family member, and we're going to chat a little bit about a nonprofit organization and an event coming up. Hey, Brittany.
Hello.
How are you doing in this quarantine Monday?
I've been staying sane so far. Some days are a struggle, but the sunshine, it helps. So keep wishing for more sunshine.
Well, stay safe and stay healthy. Can't wait to give you a real hug and not these virtual ones.
Yeah, I know.
Brittany, can you tell me a little bit? First of all, tell us a little bit about who you are and maybe what your job is.
Okay. So I am Brittany McCall. I've been in Ohio about 6 years, and 3 years ago I did a career transition. It's a long title, but it's a Survivor Outreach Service Coordinator. Basically, I take care of families who have experienced the loss of a loved one in the military or connected to the military.
So that's Gold Star families that you're working with, or survivors of family members. What is a Gold Star? What is a Gold Star family or a survivor? What does that mean? I know it's broad. I'm kind of setting out a huge question.
That's okay. So there are textbook definitions of a Gold Star family member. On the Army side of it, it refers to servicemen and women who were killed essentially in the line of duty during combat operations. That description or title kind of can vary by branch of service. My experience is the Army. My husband was killed in action October 30th of 2007. So prior to that date, and maybe even a little after, I had no idea what a Gold Star family was. And so thankfully for a lot of us, we aren't aware of what that is until you unfortunately get that title. Survivor, on the other hand, it encompasses all losses. So for me, for work, we work with illness losses, self-infliction losses, accident, whether it's training accident, vehicle accident, connected to the job or not. And then, of course, unfortunately, are killed in action or results of injuries sustained. There's a wide variety that the term survivor falls under.
Would you mind if I ask, can you tell us a little bit about your hero? Can you tell us a little bit about Daniel?
Yeah, of course. So Daniel was one of those young servicemen that, 9/11 happened, and I did not know him at the time. We didn't meet until he had already been in the military. But from getting to know him and knew that, 9/11 happened, and he was like, well, what can I do to help my country? So he signed up in 2004, and I met him down at Fort Bragg. He was going through the Q course, but had some injuries and other things going on, and ended up getting assigned to Fort Benning, Georgia. And so we were just riding in the car one day, and he's like, hey, so what would you think if I asked you to marry me and go with me? And, we were both very young at the time, but I was like, yeah, because it's the only way that I could have realistically picked up and moved with him, as I had just moved to North Carolina about a year and a half prior to that. So 6 months later, we got married and moved to Georgia. He was stationed there with 3rd Infantry Division, and started to kind of prepare for his first deployment and started going to all of his trainings. And then on March 9th of 2007, he left for that deployment. We got to Skype, but not until about 7 months into his deployment. So it was a lot of phone calls. And if anybody remembers back then in 2007, communication was not that great. So there wasn't FaceTime or Facebook Live or anything like that you now can do. But so we communicated off and on. He was just a goofy guy. He, loved the military, loved what he did, had the biggest smile, a lot of personality. Even when he was overseas, he sent me a picture one time and was like, this is what it looks like when I don't shave. And I was so confused because I didn't remember him having body hair, but I was like, but anyhow, totally got me, because I was just kind of like, okay. And then, of course, he was like, laughing his butt off because everybody was like, dude, your wife didn't even know that wasn't your chest. Joking things like that. But yeah, so they, October 30th of 2007, he and all the guys, they were out on missions. He was in a Bradley, and they basically were under an ambushed attack, and his vehicle was the first one to attempt to go over a bridge, and they were hit by a 500-pound IED that was buried, and it killed Daniel and the two other guys that were in the back of the Bradley with him. So
Wow. So, and your world changed clearly at that point.
yes, it did.
So talk to me a little bit then about from that aspect, what does it mean to be surrounded by other families and people that are not in the situation but who want to give back and support? What does that mean to you as a receiver?
I think it's probably those people have become some of the most valued people in my life, because for them to be able to kind of step outside of their world and understand all these families who are experiencing these losses, and there's nothing anyone can do that'll make it go away, but to have that, I guess, desire to want to make it better is what matters, and that's where it counts. We don't deal with death as a society very well as a whole, and so anybody who can understand the effect that it's had on these families and want to be able to give back to them is so huge. And there are many ways that you can do that. For me, I've stayed close to this community. I've gone through training to mentor other, it's mainly been other young women who have been in the same shoes, and just trying to be that kind of resource to them and or that light. For me, when I first started meeting these women who they had been about a year into their experience, I was just a couple months into it, and I was mad that they were smiling. I was mad that they were laughing, and I could not grasp or understand, how are you guys doing this? Like, you lost a loved one too. So it took a long time to realize how impactful that really was, because really all they were telling me is that it was going to be okay in their own way. And that speaks volume, because you're so lost. You're so just this fog. And especially that first year, there's a lot of fog that you just, you don't really know where you're at or what's going on. So to have
I
those,
imagine grief is different to everyone.
grief is as unique as we are an individual. And that's probably one of the most frustrating things about this path in life, is everybody wants to have a say or judge in how you're grieving. And I can't speak on behalf of everyone else, but I know for me, being a young widow, no one was ever satisfied with how or where I was at in my grief. It was, well, why are you sitting in a corner crying? Get up and move on with your life, get out there. And if it wasn't that, then it was, why aren't you crying? Why aren't you at home grieving your husband? There was no right in everyone else's eyes. And until you experience something, you just don't know.
So Susan is on here, by the way. No surprise. She said how much we love you. And thank you for sharing your story. So Susan, I know, was also with SOS, which is where you are now. Is that kind of the spark behind the importance to you to be in that position? And tell us a little bit about what you do in your job with SOS as a contractor.
Yep.
With the Army National Guard.
Yeah. So that's kind of a unique story. I lived in Fort Bragg and Fort Benning, so active duty bases. 6 years ago, I decided to come up here, go to school. I was very connected to Survivor Outreach Services at Fort Bragg. I had no idea they existed in Ohio. To me, Ohio was not a military, an active duty military state. So it's a little ignorance on my end, but about a year after living here, I went to the Fallen 15 dinner that was to honor the next coming year's 15 honorees. And I went with Wounded Warrior Project, complete fluke. And I just thought it was the families that were there. And then all of a sudden, it had to have been Marshall at the time, was like, well, I'm going to introduce to you Susan Bogan, who's our Survivor Outreach Coordinator. And I literally went, what? You people exist here? Like, that was my reaction. So I approached her and I said, this is who I am. This is my story. This is where I'm from. And she too was like, why do I not know who you are? Why, So anyways, I was working at the time, complete different industry. and just offered my assistance to her if I could volunteer or help in any way. And so she got me connected and started reaching out, and we communicated, and I attended things probably for about a year. And she asked if I would be okay with Fallen 15 honoring Daniel in 2017.
Okay.
And for me, I had a lot going on at life at that point, and I had just some close relationships that I was struggling with, because some people just don't understand how you can honor a loved one who's passed and still move forward in life. It's a weird thing with relationships. So I was going through a lot, and she asked if they would honor him, and it was such an honor to me to know that, I don't have legit ties to Ohio, but oh my gosh, here's this organization and these people that still want to honor Daniel, and not only his life, but me and my life as well. So it's all the feels and all the emotions.
Absolutely. And I think it's important that everybody know out there that you do go out and you do learn that story and you learn about Daniel, but all of the 15 that have been honored each year over the last 5 years. And we'll talk about this year and how we're going to honor them here in a second. But if we can point out, if they go to fallen15.com or .org, it goes to the same place, and click on tributes. You can choose the 2015 to 17, and you'll see Sergeant Daniel McCall, U.S. Army. So please, 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 if you're watching, please go out there and look at it, learn his story, keep it going. All right. For him, for Brittany, and for all of us who have the freedoms that we have. I am going to reconvene here. Let's pull it back into throwing our arms around, supporting each other. So what about these events? So I know that you mentioned an event for Fallen 15. You've been to Wounded Warriors and other ones. What do events in that community, how does it help family members and veterans alike, not only, but very importantly, the Gold Star, but everyone involved in that community? How do those events help them?
Sorry.
It's a big answer, comment.
I thought it was stabilized up here. It is not. So I think one of the biggest things that when people are dealing with grief that they struggle with is, well, I can't go out in public because everybody's going to see me cry. Or I don't want to go out in public because I don't want to just go out and cry. I think with a lot of the Fallen 15 events that I've experienced is it's more so focused at come get out of the house and have some fun. It's not so much focused on, hey, come and cry. Do tears happen a lot of the times? Absolutely, because we're talking about loved ones who are no longer here, and, honoring them in their lives and remembering them in their lives. So I think just the fact that the events, their whole purpose is to get us out of the house, get us back in the community, and get the community involved too, where there are other community partners, and, the shooting events that have happened in the past, different people that would probably never cross paths with families of these 15 servicemen and women each year. It gives them an opportunity to share their story and not so much being on the spotlight. Like, obviously, coming on today, I knew I'd be talking about my story. Sometimes with events, families go to have fun, but they end up talking about their loved one, and it ends up being okay. And it gives them the okay that I can go out and do more things like this.
So when there are those events, I know that what I've seen typically, and I found the most moving at some of those events, were there's literally tents with tables where families display items of importance. That is not the case because of the quarantine we're in right now. When there are future events and that's allowed, what is it that they bring, and how are they able to share that story with somebody who doesn't know them and know their loved one?
So what you're talking about mainly is that the race that they've done annually. This year it is different because of stay home orders and, just wanting to keep the health and safety of everybody in mind. So in years past, families have been given the opportunity where they have a table set up at the race, kind of just not along the trail that they run usually, but it's a whole display area. Families have brought anything from boots that have cement in them with a flag sticking out, dog tags, picture collages, picture books, awards, favorite items from their loved ones, just favorite single pictures in a picture frame. I know there's lots of other things that have come across here, but the way that we're hoping to allow families to still participate in that this year will be a virtual table set up. So for work wise, one of the ways I'm able to communicate with the families is on behalf of Fallen 15. And I reached out to them and, gave them all the details on the race coming up, which I'm sure Christy and I will be able to touch here in a minute. But that the families can set up a table at home, or if they have a shrine or a room or what have you of their loved one, to set those items up on display and take a picture and get it over to Fallen 15. And during the race day window, they are, it'll be some type of slideshow or some type of show that will scroll over those days. I don't know that the details are settled yet, but that way it still shares that story. And depending on who the family member is that is sharing these items, you might see childhood pictures all the way up until their military career, or you might just see their military career, or if they were a father, husband, brother, sister, child, you usually get to see that reflected in what the families choose to share forward. It just gives you a glimpse of looking at the life that that person lived and remembering them for that, and just kind of helping the family reminisce on those good memories as well.
And as you mentioned, it's going to be all as individual as each person is very different. What is, if somebody wants to, if they have a conversation is in front of them and impending, and they want to ask more, because from what I've learned, it is important for that story, for those questions to happen, and for that sharing to happen. What's appropriate? What are appropriate questions and responses, and
That's
what's
a hard one, because what I might be okay with someone asking me, I'm very open. I've shared my story, this year in October, it will be 13 years. And I maybe didn't share it for 13 years, but a good portion of that I've been sharing it. So I'm comfortable, even if I get emotional or not, I'm okay with that. So just kind of have your feelers out there. And a lot of times people want you to ask about their loved one. Tell me about their life. Tell me about, did they play sports? Did they have a hobby? Just ask questions about them and who they were, especially our families who are experiencing losses to suicide. There's a completely different layer of grief there that we probably won't ever understand, because that's as unique in itself as well. And so ensuring that those families are comfortable in sharing that their loved one and the life they lived helps take the focus off, or helps the families think that you're not focused on, well, how did they die? Because unfortunately, when people hear, that my husband was killed in action, or they hear that I'm a widow, well, how'd they die? Why is that your first question? Why aren't we asking, tell me about them? Who are they? What's your favorite moment about that? Whatever it is, but try to shift that focus on the life they lived before the loss, no matter how that loss happened, and get away from the focus on, well, how'd they die? The families are already dealing with enough, no matter that how. They don't want to have that conversation usually.
So not at all same lines, but just going back even further. So I'm a Blue Star mom, very proud Marine mom here, and I know many friends and so forth, neighbors, you name it, that will be watching this, no doubt. So and Susan is a spouse, so we're all out there. Do you feel like when Michael was, or sorry, new husband Michael, now, who's also military, and then Daniel, military. What to a wife who's not military? What are those questions that are appropriate and support that we can give someone of an active military?
I think it's difficult to ask, but so easy. Anything I can do for you, anything you need from me. It's easier than kind of putting it, trying to just assume or to know, I guess. But it's not an easy question either, and it's going to vary depending on how much time has passed for each survivor as well. It's so much easier to go the negative route here and do the do not asks, because another big one is children. did you have children? That's like one of the top 5 questions. Did you have children? And no matter if I say yes or no, there's always a follow on to that. And it's usually not what any one of us wants to hear. It's either, oh, that's awesome, or oh, that's too bad, like both ways. Um, so again, if you can kind of more so either go to asking about their life, or like you've done and asked me, what's kept me connected to the community or what keeps me going, different things like that, or that's a tough one.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, I'm just thinking from a support side. So as a Blue Star mom, and my daughter-in-law being the wife of a currently active military member, I think it's just more about what can I do for you? I think you said it in that one question right there. And I don't think I ask often enough, and I don't need anything, by the way, so don't worry about asking me, folks. But I will say, I think that alone, that's just a simplistic question.
Yeah.
How are you and what do you need? Okay, so let's talk about what's coming up and how we can support the veterans and the survivors. We have the race. It's an annual memorial race. Obviously, it's around the theme and the time frame of Memorial Day. So it's May 17th through the 22nd, and it's a virtual race this year. That is crazy. I had to ask probably 10 times, like, what does that mean? Tell us a little bit about what you know about the virtual race that's coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the virtual race kind of offers a unique opportunity because we can go a lot wider and further with our love to show for these families. So I personally, on my Facebook page, put a post up just a couple of days ago and asked people, if you don't want to participate, at least share this forward, because you might have runners out there that you're unaware of that are looking for something to do. It's a unique time to ask anybody for anything, just because of the quarantine and the unemployment, and we have no idea what everybody's going through. But at the same time, it's such an important time to focus on mental health. And a lot of that is getting out of the house. And so the race, like Chrissy just said, it'll be a virtual race. Registration is currently open. It's through Race Penguin. You can find it on the Fallen 15 website, the Fallen 15 Facebook page, or Race Penguin itself. And any of those, there is a link. You will get a t-shirt and a coin from that. And the t-shirt will have the 15 service members who are being honored as a part of 2020, and it will have the year on it. And again, you have between the 17th and the 22nd to participate in that. And, that kind of leaves it on your free will you have a good range there. But at some point in that time, make sure you go and check out the page too, and check out those tables that, I'm still working with the families on getting those. A few of them don't have the technology capabilities to do a display table. So for some of them, you might just see some pictures in their bio, which is what you'd be able to find on the website as well. Those are just some, things that we'll work through with those families. But we're really hoping to paint a better picture of these servicemen and women, and give you the opportunity to feel like you're getting to know them a little bit.
So do you have to be an avid runner and someone who gets into marathons to participate?
No. So I plan on doing it myself. I'm glad that it's a 5K. That's like the lowest of lows for races, from my understanding. And I am not a runner at all, so I most likely will walk it, but it'll just give me the, that mental connection to it, to know that I did it and did it my part. And of course, I walk it in honor of all the service members of that year, but I especially, something like this would walk in honor of Daniel as well. And I know earlier you said husband, but Michael's my fiance, and he actually will do it with. That's okay. He ran it last year, right after he had gotten back from his deployment. He actually came back and was home for a little over a month and ran, just in honor of all the servicemen and women last year. So we'll do it again this year. He runs, I don't. I'll be walking, and he'll lap me 3 times. So
6 feet away from you, I can walk with you. But this is also a unique opportunity. This never existed before. So my son is a runner. well, my older one, my younger one's working on that. But I'm excited. I'm going to sign it just in case you didn't know this, Jake. If you're watching, going to get you signed up, and I'm going to send you, your shirt when it's over. But people who are far and away can also participate in this, whereas before it was here locally in Central Ohio. So, like Brittany said, go out to fallen15.com or .org, or run over to Race Penguin, just like the little bird, the flat bird. Go to racepenguin.com, click on events, and it is the Fallen 15 Memorial Virtual Run on May 17th. That's where you find it. You click the button to register, and it's easy peasy from there. But anyway, Brittany, I thank you so very much for sharing your story. You are always very inspiring, and we keep it real and keep it together for those that we want to support. So thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Guys, if you have any questions, if you would like to know anything more about anything that we discussed, or if you know anyone who might need this support or services of either Brittany with the SOS services or Fallen 15 or another nonprofit in the area that's military related, send an email to info@fallen15.com. I said that right, Brittany?
Yeah.
Okay. info@fallen15.com. And one of us will be checking that email and get back to you and help out in any way possible. In the meantime, thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate you and your time, and we hope you're out there staying safe and healthy. Give me a call if you have any questions about real estate, and look forward to chatting with you all soon. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.